So I just finished my usual Saturday barefoot half marathon. I haven't run any full marathons for a bit now, since that second one that I did. I think I was kind of overdoing it and starting to cause some pain, like some shin splints in my left leg. So I decided to slow it down just a little bit. And now what I'm thinking is I'd like to do, for right now, my running training, I'm running every other morning with a half marathon at least once a week. And what I'll probably do is build that up to a 2/3 marathon at least once a week, or maybe switch back and forth, half marathon, 2/3 marathon, half marathon, 2/3 marathon, and then at some point start throwing in full marathons. I'll start maybe once every second lunar cycle, something like that. So I didn't do any in the last lunar cycle, so this one that we're just starting now, maybe I'll do one in this lunar cycle. Won't be next weekend, because next weekend I have that Legends camp with Daniel Santo and at Fong. But maybe the weekend after that I can do a full marathon. Anyway, as I was running today, I was thinking about something. Just the other day, I got a little deposit into my bank account from Google AdSense. This is the first time the monetization of my YouTube channel has ever led to me being paid anything. So I got my first deposit of $105, and I was thinking, how would I like to spend that $105? I mean, the whole monetization of my channel, the idea behind it is basically, if it's possible, then I would be able to, make some money to help support my endeavors, the things that I'm featuring on the channel, particularly the martial arts stuff, but because the nature stuff doesn't cost me any money, of course, but the martial arts stuff does. So I was thinking that $100 could go towards something, toward my martial arts training. And what I really need right now, I think, is I need a new hoodie. Preferably with my own logo, because I only got so many workout clothes. It's getting cold. I'm definitely going to be, wearing a hoodie in my runs for the next several months, along with a couple of layers underneath most of the time. Under layers I already got, but I'd like a nice hoodie, and the only one I have right now is my FMK hoodie. And though I'm not really all hung up on the fact that I'm wearing this label and I no longer care for the brand, still does kind of bother me a little bit, and I'd like to have something with my own design on it going into the future. So I've been thinking about what are some possible names and logos that I could maybe use of my own design, and a couple of different names that I've been bouncing around in my thoughts. One of them, very simply, would be a Gaiokaki or a Gaiyokimon, which is my Blackfoot name, and it was given to me by the late Mamioka-Geekin, Adam Delaney, and he gave me that name after the 13 times that he had danced outside of the Sundance encampment as leader of the Horn Society in a dance, in a manner that's called Iokima, which is to kind of to ward off a threat. And the best way to understand it is from its reference in the natural world. It would be like if there were wolves chasing after a buffalo calf or an older buffalo, and some of the other bulls kind of charged the wolves as they got close to ward them off. That's a Yokima. So my Blackfoot name is Agayokaki, which is short for Agayokimon, which means many wardings off, many shieldings. It's not really translatable directly to English, but it's that charging motion to head off the threat. It's almost like it's not really a feint, because it would go through with it, but it's warding off. Any case, that would be one of the potential names I could call my own label. The only, what do you got? Yeah. Well, thank you. You can have that. Yeah, you can have that. Mm-hmm. The only issue with just naming it myself, like a Gaiokaki or Gaiokaki Institute or something like that, would be that it's not as inclusive of others if there's others that want to kind of partner up with me in any of these pursuits. Then the label is doesn't speak to a collective identity very well. So another idea that I had for a name would be to call it Emonitsi Institute or Emonitsi Society. If I call it Emonitsi Society, I could probably start even a non-profit around it. Could have both. Could have Emonitsi Institute as a business name and Emonitsi Society as a non-profit that's connected to the business. The word Emonitsi in Blackfoot refers to the river otter, and in particular it describes the way that the river otter slides down a bank into the water. That's the literal translation of Emonitsi, is that sliding motion. but I'm using it in reference to the animal itself, its personality, its characteristics, and its role in Blackfoot traditions. I did start even getting some people together a couple of years ago under the idea of putting together M186 society that would undertake various kind of regional ecological activities, including some of the animal rescue that I've been involved with, that kind of thing. But there's more that I want to incorporate under whatever label that I come up with, and so I've still got to think a little bit about before I settle on a name. But I could, I think, at this point design a logo at least, even if it doesn't have a name attached to it at the moment. And I have in mind an idea for that logo, and it would involve, it would evoke 3 different animals who I see as their combination of characteristics and associations to traditional Blackfoot knowledge, and just their personalities all kind of fit to speak to a lot of the aspects of my life that I see as synergistically and holistically merged within my greater artistic vision about, you know, my project, my life project, what I'm doing, and how all these various aspects of my life relate to that project, because there's nothing that I'm doing that's outside of that. It all is one big endeavor. So the 3 animals that I have in mind, one of them comes from the air, one of them comes from the land, and one of them comes from the underwater. And these are kind of the 3 zones of the biosphere that are recognized in Blackfoot ecological knowledge tradition, and in prayer and these kind of things you call to Spomita Peaks, Achgomita Peaks, and Soyita Peaks, all of the life of the air, the land, and the underwater. And we'll just start with the underwater one, because we've already talked about it a little bit, which is the Emonies, the otter, is the one that I would like to use as a representative of the underwater. And the reason I choose the otter is multifaceted. First of all, the otter, river otter, is really, really susceptible to pollutions. So if there's any significant pollution in the water, they will move. They will go away from that pollution if they can. There's some places where they absolutely can't, but for the most part, they'll go away from that pollution. Another part of its signification is that, for me, is that the river otters are very, very scarce here now, where they used to be. There used to be many of them. They used to be profuse in the area where I live, and they were, for the most part, over trapped during the fur trade and such, and so you don't run across them in too many places within this territory now. They're very, very scarce, and I see myself as kind of a very, very scarce kind of a human being. So there's that aspect. The biggest part of the reason that I choose the otter is because of the role it plays in the origin stories, particularly associated with the beaver bundle in Blackfoot tradition, where the otter really defines, in one of the stories, really sets it very clear where human beings are in the ecological scheme of things. There's kind of a hostage situation where the beavers have a man's wife, and the man has one of the beavers' pups, and the future generations are at stake because the man's own infant son no longer has a mother to feed from, and of course because the beaver's son infant pup is being held captive. So it's almost like the future generations are at stake, and there needs to be an agreement between the human beings and the animals. And the beavers call on all their allies, all the animals who rely on the way that the beavers live to create the habitat that they need to survive here. Beavers, keystone species, and really the ideal, like the Blackfoot ideal of how what we're striving toward is to be able to live in a way that everything that we do with our lives creates opportunities for others to thrive, for other life forms to thrive. This is ultimately what it means from this perspective, from my perspective, and from the Blackfoot perspective, to be adapted to this place. You know, if you want to talk about evolution, there is kind of a Blackfoot perspective on it, and that is that yes, nature does select for adaptation. The adaptation that it particularly selects for is whoever is the greatest host to life is the most adapted.